comes from John 4:30, and then 39. Now he had to go through Samaria. So he came to a town in Samaria called Sychar, near the plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and near the plot of ground Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, and Jesus, tired as he was from the journey, sat down by the well. It was about noon. When a Samaritan woman came to draw water, Jesus said to him, "Will you give me a drink?" His disciples had gone into the town to buy food. The Samaritan woman said to him, "You are a Jew, and I am a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink?" For Jews did not associate with Samaritans. Jesus asked her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that asks you for a drink, you would have asked him and would have given you living water." "Sir," the woman said, "you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Where can you get this living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us the well and drank from it himself, as did also his sons and his livestock?" Jesus answered, "Everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again, but whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water welling up into eternal life." The woman said to him, "Sir, give me this water so I won't get thirsty and have to keep coming here to draw water." He told her, "Go, call your husband and come back." "I have no husband," she replied. Jesus said to her, "You are right when you say you have no husband. The fact is, you have had 5 husbands, and the man you now have is not your husband. What you have just said is quite true." "Sir," the woman said, "I can see that you are a prophet. Our ancestors worshipped on this mountain, but you Jews claim that the place where we must worship is in Jerusalem." "Woman," Jesus replied, "believe me, a time is coming when you will worship the Father neither on this mountain nor in Jerusalem. You Samaritans worship what you do not know. We worship what we do know, for salvation is from the Jews. Yet a time is coming, and has now come, when the true worshipers will worship the Father in the Spirit and in truth. For they are the kind of worshipers the Father seeks. God is Spirit, and his worshipers must worship in the Spirit and the truth." The woman said, "I know that Messiah, called Christ, is coming. When he comes, he will explain everything to us." Then Jesus declared, "I, the one speaking to you, I am he." Just then his disciples returned and were surprised to find him talking with a woman. But no one asked, "What do you want?" or "Why are you talking with her?" Then leaving her water jar, the woman went back to this town and said to the people, "Come, see a man who had told everything I ever did. Could this be the Messiah?" They came out of the town and made their way toward him. Many of the Samaritans from the town believed in him because of the woman's testimony. "He told me everything I ever did." So when the Samaritans come to him, they urged him to stay with them, and he stayed 2 days. And because of his words, many more became believers.
Amen. And the Lord bless the reading of his word today. That's a lengthy one, I know, but you really need to hear that much of it to truly get the story. Today we're going to start a new sermon series called The WIG, which is an acronym that stands for Wildly Important Goals. And we get that acronym from up the chain, if you will, Indiana United Methodist Church Conference and our own part of that, the North District, have created these WIGs, these wildly important goals, as marks that they're hoping that our churches will work to meet as we work to fulfill the work of the church, which is to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. And so our WIG goals began back in 2017 and the first one's focus was this, that clergy and laity understand what it means to be missional. And some of you might remember that as a topic. I'm looking around and I'm trying to remember who was with us at that District Connection Day that day that we went and we talked about what it means to be missional. But if you weren't there for it, that's perfectly fine, because that wasn't the only time it was mentioned. I came in here and I preached on it, and I've preached on it, and I've talked about it, and I've tried to keep the word missional in our church's vocabulary ever since. And the reason that we set out with that goal of making sure that everybody in our churches understands what missional means is, first of all, the word can maybe be confusing to some people. Because missional does not mean missions, necessarily. We all understand what missions are, right? Missions are what we're called to do in areas of service. But when you add that A and that L on there, it changes things. Now missions are those actions that we do when we give, say, money towards missionaries. It's our time and our talents that we use to serve other people. Maybe we take mission trips. Some of us get together in groups from our churches and we go and maybe help a building project somewhere. Maybe missions of a local nature looks like giving to our local community food banks, or maybe volunteering there, things of that nature. It's Christians giving and working to alleviate suffering and to promote the gospel. Some examples of what we do in our church, for instance, if you're centric to Methodism, you maybe have heard the word apportionments, and that means a little portion of what we give on Sunday mornings goes to the global church to do missions and to assist in areas around the world that we could not do very easily at all on our own. That's one thing we do. One thing is we give to area causes as well, and we support our Combined Community Services Food Bank here in Warsaw for our county. We have our own missions that we do, such as our Feed the Farmers initiative at harvest time. We provide at Christmas time, we provide for area families in need. And those are just to name a few. And those are all good things. Missions are good. Churches should be doing missions. We're doing missions, and I think we ought to do more of them. But it's not the same thing as what I want to talk to you about this morning. It's not the same thing as missional. Because now missions might happen to be missional, depending on how we go about them. But the thing that makes missional different is missional is relational. Missional is about building relationships. And of course you can do that while you're doing missions, but it's different. And so being relational is what makes missional what it is. It's about sharing Jesus as you share life with other people. And there's no better person to explain what missional is than Jesus himself. And he's displaying it for us in the story of the woman at the well that we just heard read. If we're paying attention to John's Gospel there, chapter 4, we find it's a hot day. Jesus and the disciples are traveling, they're making their way back to Galilee. Jesus decides to stop for a while and rest beside a well as the disciples go on ahead and in search of food. And pretty soon at noon, which is exactly the wrong time of day to go get water at a well, in case you were wondering, high noon, a Samaritan woman comes along. She's carrying an empty bucket. She's going to get more than her bucket filled that day because she's going to have a conversation with Jesus. And that conversation starts easily enough. The Lord asks her for a drink of water. And this woman is a Samaritan, and she reminds Jesus that she's a Samaritan, and you, sir, are a Jew, and you and I both know that Samaritans and Jews don't hang out together. They don't talk. Jews are proper. Samaritans don't live right. They're from the wrong side of the tracks, if you know what I mean by that. Jesus makes it clear. She's okay in his presence. He knows why she's there. She came to fill her bucket with water. But he wants to spend a little slice of life with her. He wants to spend some time with her. He wants to share a life-giving moment with her. He wants to offer her a chance to be in relationship with God. And it will be a life-changing relationship that leads to everlasting life. And she tries to make sure that Jesus knew that she was unworthy of his time. You know, he asks her about her husband, and she admits that she's not married currently. And he says, you're right, I know a little bit about you. I know that you've burned your way through 5 husbands, and now you're living with a guy, and he's not your husband. And that's why you're here in the middle of the day. Because you don't want to run into anybody that knows about your business and will confront you on it. So Jesus knew that she was missing the mark in life. But Jesus didn't do to her what others had done. He didn't shame her. He didn't judge her. He didn't send her off. Didn't tell her that she didn't belong there. Didn't tell her that she was unworthy. Rather, he made it crystal clear that she was welcomed in his presence as she was. That she was welcome to come to the Father, and if she was willing to worship God in spirit and truth, it didn't matter what she had done. It didn't matter what her past looked like. It didn't matter where she was in life right now. It didn't matter how many bad decisions she'd made in her time. He wanted to know what her decision was right then and there. And will you give this relationship with God a chance? Because God is a God of second chances, and here is your chance. And if you want the water, the living water that never runs out, then come and be filled. You've been filling yourself with all sorts of things that don't get you there, and who hasn't done that? And even when we find Jesus, we still try it, don't we? He says, I've got the living water that never runs out. And it can be yours today. And so what did that woman do? What did she do when Jesus didn't turn her away and like everybody else had done? What did she do when Jesus accepted her right where she was? Wrong decisions and failures and all. What did she do when Jesus took some time and he shared some life with her and he got to know her and he learned about her story and he offered her the chance to start a new chapter in her story? What did she do when Jesus took the time and the effort to make a place for her with him? A woman who had no place and who came from the wrong places. She runs back into town, right? And she says, come see a man. Come see a man who told me everything I ever did. And can I add these words that I think she was implying? And he loved me anyways. She never experienced love like that. She'd never experienced acceptance like that. And she tried. But here was Jesus, who loved her as she was, didn't reject her because of who she wasn't. This was amazing. This was more than amazing. This was life-altering. And so what did she do? She ran back to town. Probably all those people who whispered about her behind her back, and she said, come see a man. Come see a man. The Samaritan woman was shown love. And that led to her experiencing God's love. And when she experienced God's love, she wanted to go out and make sure other people experienced God's love. Do you see how that works? Once she determined that this was a safe place to be, and somebody was willing to meet her right where she was, and showed her that she was worth spending time with, that she was worth sharing life with, that there was a place even for her, then she just had to go and share it with others. So do you see how missional, if that's what missional is, do you see how missional is different from missions? Missions is putting food in a food donation box out in the foyer there. It's sending money overseas to support missionaries. Those are things that are good and we shouldn't stop doing them. But what we need to do as this church is to make sure we're doing what Jesus modeled in this passage. It requires something more from us. It requires us to get riskier. It requires us to build relationships with people that we don't already know and with people that you wouldn't normally hang out with, if I can be so blunt. Just like Jesus and the Samaritan woman. That was an unlikely friendship that struck up that day, wasn't it? There were two people who wouldn't normally sit down and have a chat at a well. To give you some examples of what this looks like in our church. This past Wednesday, we went to Fellowship Mission's homeless shelter, like we do at the end of every month. We're thinking of adding another day. If people are asking for it, I think I'm going to try to work that in. What we do is we go there in the meeting room and we sit down with residents and we hear their stories as they gather and we worship together. We spend time in their place with them. We make a place with them where they're at, and we make sure that they understand that if they want to come back here to this church, they are welcomed and accepted as is. And then when new folks come in here, in time to check it out, which they undoubtedly do, then that entails that you all go over and you meet these new people who come into the church. And if it happens to be a day where we have something special, like having a meal or something, then that means that you go and you sit down beside them and you eat with them. I know you guys get together and go to lunch and breakfast and dinner, and you can still do that, but when you're in the church, go eat with somebody you don't know. That's how it works. Another example, Feed the Farmers event. I talked about that earlier. You know, we go over, we hit lots of elevators now. Aldersgate Church, we go over to the Creighton Brothers Mill. We go over here at the elevator at Clunet, and we're even running them around to some of the local farmers that have their own independent operations. What we do is we gather, our kids decorate bags, lunch bags, and we donate and we fill these lunch bags with portable lunches. And what we could do is we could just set a table out there and ask farmers to grab them when they come across the scales themselves or something as they're bringing the grain in at harvest time. But no, what we do is, and we got pictures of it, I'm looking at one of them back there, we climb up on the steps of the semi and we talk to them for a second and we share life with them and we ask them how they're doing and we thank them and say, we appreciate what you're doing for us. You're feeding us all year long. We want to feed you for a change. And we share life with them. And that's what makes that mission missional. We adopt families in need at Christmas, right? Our kids just work their tails off all December because you all were so generous as to give, and you gave an unprecedented amount of money to, I forget how many families and senior citizens we adopted this year. And we had a family of 7 over at the Leesburg School that had a house fire and lost everything. We were able to help them out. But you guys all donated, and then our kids went, and our youth leaders went, and they shopped for all these families and got all this stuff and wrapped them. And what we could do is just drop them at the door and leave them. But what we do is we go into their residences and we meet with them and we pray with them and we share life with them. And that's what makes that mission missional. You know, we have this evening service, the circuit, 6:30 every Sunday night. Yes, even on Super Bowl Sunday, we have a church. If anybody's wondering. I don't cancel Jesus for football. It's a little easier because the Colts are no one I care about. We have this evening service, the circuit, and we have folks every Sunday. They drive into town and they pick folks up, right, that don't have a ride here. Folks at the homeless shelter, Probably going to be a big crowd tonight for those, because we just were in there, and whenever we go and we spend time with them, there's always a bunch that want to come back to church. So we're going to be picking up people at the homeless shelter. There's group homes that we pick people up at, right? And they're going to come in here, and when they're going to get here, and we added this because we figured out that people were missing a meal to come to church, and that doesn't seem right. So we started offering a meal before service in the evenings. And so those folks are going to come in, and there's going to be a meal waiting for them. And we're not just going to shove a plate under their face at the counter, but we sit down and we eat with them, and we talk with them, and we share life with them. And it makes a difference. That's what makes that mission missional. It's relational, and it's the most beautiful thing, and it's changing lives. And that's what's going on in our church, and we started out with the goal of making sure in our state of Indiana that clergy were understanding what missional is, and that the people were understanding what missional is. But there's an element that we take beyond that. And I think our two little churches of Clunet and Aldersgate are true life examples of what being missional can do in the lives of the people in our congregations, the lives of the people that we're reaching. We have testimony after testimony after testimony of lives being changed because we're willing to do that. But here's the cool side effect. Our little churches are growing. We set new records. We have been for years. You guys are spoiled. You're spoiled. We don't know any better because we've been doing it for a while now. But our churches are growing. Our two little churches in this circuit are growing. Because Jesus is in the house. And Jesus is hanging out with his people who are hanging out with other people. And he's dwelling in the lives of the people who are coming through the doors. And what's making a difference is the people are going out these doors, and they're going out into the lives of others, and they're making an impact. People are being met, and lives are being changed right where they are. So why do we make this big push to be missional? Why do we continue to work at it? And I won't let it die. It's because you and I were the woman at the well one time, weren't we? Unless somebody carried you in here as a baby and you don't know any different, I'm assuming you were a woman at the well one day, and Jesus met you right where you were. And it changed your whole life. Can I get an amen? Has Jesus changed your whole life? Because he found you one day, right? And that changed everything. And instead of turning away from you because of all the bad you did, he loved you anyways. And he forgave you of all that. And he welcomed you into his presence. He shared his life with you. And that changed everything. So if it happened that way for you, and if Jesus was missional with you because he was willing to relate with you right where he found you, then what are you going to do with that? As individuals, what are you going to do with that? What does it look like for you personally to be missional? Right where you are. If you notice in that story, this life-changing event didn't happen in church. It happened at a well. It happened out there, right? It happened in a conversation between people out in the real world. So that's where we've got to be. Get out there and love people right where they are. Enter into their lives. Share life with them. Make a place for them with you in your life. And then you can invite them into our place here together. And when they do that, allow them the time and the room to grow in Jesus, to let them experience the life-changing gospel of Jesus Christ as we share it with them, and let Jesus do the work in them, and let it go from there. For some of you, it'll come easy. Some of you, I marvel at how missional you are. I don't think you even knew what you were doing, but you are missional, and it changes lives. And I'm amazed at what you all can do. And others of you, it will be tough. But you see, everybody needs to be doing this. I don't care how tough it is. Get good at it. Look at the other people who are good at it and learn from them. Hop in on some of these ways that we do it within the church. Learn how it's done, and then go back and do it yourself in your own life. Because the one who was missional to us calls us to be missional to others. The one who died to have a relationship with us is telling us to have relationships with others. And that will help him in his cause. If you build a relationship between you and somebody else first, that's his way in, you see. It's through us. And then when you do that, and then they form a relationship with Jesus, guess what? They're going to go into their circles, and they're going to do the same thing, and it's going to spread like a prairie fire. Right? This church is not a church that's going to sit and worry about survival. If we do, we're going to kill it off. But if we're going to strive to be a missional church, everything else will fall into place. A missional church is filled with people who know the one by whom they're saved, who go out and enter into the lives of others and make a place in our lives for them. And then they too will go out and enter into the lives of others, and they're going to say what that Samaritan woman said, "Come see a man. Come see a man." And the people with the wildly important goal to know what it means to be missional and are then committed to be missional said, "Amen." Let's pray. Most Holy Lord, we thank you for the example of being missional in your word to us in the 4th chapter of John with the story of the Samaritan woman at the well. We thank you for sharing it with us and showing us that she had a place with you, and how relationship building is how she understood it. And it's how we understand it too. So thank you, Lord, that you did that for us, to establish a relationship with us. It changed everything for us when you shared your life with us. So Lord, empower us to go forth and live out our faith as your missional church. Show us how we might do that together as well as individually in our daily lives, making a place, sharing your love, building relationships so that others too may have a saving relationship with you as well. And it's in your own name we pray. Amen.